We're off. We're
All right.
starting. Welcome.
Welcome.
This is promoting inclusion in online facilitation. I'm Judy. This is Martin. We're your hosts for today. Should we do a quick warm-up activity?
Sure.
Let's do that.
In your immediate vicinity, find a facilitation resource, and on the count of 3, hold it up to the camera. What have you got? 1, 2, 3.
Wow, look at what we've got. All sorts of bits and pieces.
We've got Pomodoros, we've got other kinds of timers, we've got
pens,
books, and coffee mugs.
What is it that Morel is holding up as something square? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, it's calling a time cube.
Ah.
You can put you can choose certain of time you want to have time. And when I started, that's very funny. I will start like this. It started green, and after the half of time it will be orange, and at the end of time it will be red, and in the last seconds it will be flushing red.
Thank you.
A very nice thing.
That is great.
Yeah, we call it a time cube.
Fantastic.
Clever stuff. Anything else that's unusual?
There's a lovely cuddly cat as well. Thank you, Tony, for that.
Carolina, what have you got? That looks interesting.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, those are insight discovery cubes, and they are made of foam, so you may use them as stressors. But just for playing around for those who have a nervous energy.
Yeah, Adrienne has a couple too. I think I need one. I'm getting cabin fever.
And Emily, you've got a high-tech looking solution.
Yeah, a USB drive for sharing resources.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
So welcome everybody. Martin, would you like to introduce yourself and say a bit about what we've been up to and how this has happened?
Sure, I'll be glad to. So my name is Martin Gilbraith. I know that I'm known to many of you. I recognize quite a few familiar faces. Some of you have been to some of my own previous free facilitation webinars in the past. Those have all been in Adobe Connect, so I'm very excited to be working with Judy on this webinar in Zoom this time. And we'll be doing things a little bit differently than I've been used to in the past. I'll leave it to Judy to say more about where the idea came from for the topic of social inclusion. But what I'll say about the process that we'll be using is that it's pretty shamelessly adopted, I would say, even rather than adapted, from a number of sessions that Judy and I have just been delivering over the past weekend with Orla Cronin, maybe known to some of you.
Maybe on the call, I'm not sure.
Yeah, she may. I haven't seen her yet, but she may be joining. Working with the European region of a large international NGO who had a 3-day strategy forum scheduled for 100 delegates, was to be in Brussels. We got appointed 3 weeks ago to help them make it a hybrid meeting. Their delegates couldn't travel. And then the day after we took the job, turned out all international travel was banned. It was going to have to go 100% virtual. So the 3 of us developed a virtual alternative, which we've been delivering over the last weekend, using Zoom and using Mentee Meter, using Jamboard, using a lot of tools and approaches, which we are now going to demonstrate with you. So the topic will be different, the group will be different, but the methods are tried and tested, so I hope you enjoy them. How about the topic, Judy? Where did that come from?
So the topic came from Bhavana, who is on the call. She joined an event that I was running on a few weeks ago, and we were experimenting with how to make web events more connecting, more interactive, more involving. And one of the things she noticed is, of course, the facilitator in Zoom breakouts can't overhear what's going on in the breakout rooms. And that led to a discussion about what would you do if something had happened in the breakout rooms that was, something that in normal, in the room facilitation, you'd have called it into discussion and highlighted it and said, did anybody notice what happened and what do we think about that? All those kind of good things. And that led to a whole discussion about, well, what do we know about promoting inclusion in online facilitation? Because I know what I know, and I know how I handle those situations as a facilitator and as a trainer, but I had no idea what other people did or knew. So we thought it would be fun to put together this event, to invite as many people as we could, and we've actually got 138 people registered for this event. I think some people will be popping in and out.
Wow.
We've got 52 on the call at the moment. We wanted to invite a bunch of people. A lot of you are very experienced facilitators. Some are very experienced online facilitators. Let's do a bit of brainstorming together and let's access the wisdom of this crowd to find out what we can learn. So that was the idea. So Martin and I are not here as experts about to give you a talk over slides webinar about promoting inclusion in online facilitation. Both of us know a lot about online facilitation one way or another, but that's not what we're here to do. We're here to facilitate, not to lecture. One of the things that was interesting about the event at the weekend that Martin mentioned was that several people on those Zoom events said it seemed more inclusive on Zoom than it would have been in the room, that it was more accessible. That's also a message I've heard from other organisations, particularly where there's been a lot of older participants who had found it difficult to travel and also to hear, and that it was easier to join meetings on Zoom than it would be to travel into London, for example. So there's a whole bunch of interesting things going on around this topic about how might we as facilitators promote inclusion in online facilitation. Is there anything else I should be saying at this point, Martin?
I don't think so. Shall we show them the slide, the feedback that we got at the end of the weekend?
Yes, let's do that.
There's one or two mentions in here, I think, of feeling included. But after pulling off a design process that was derailed several times by intervening events, and then leading 5 sessions over 3 days with more than 100 people, working in a team that had never worked before, with a process that we'd never tried before, and a couple of tools we'd never tried before either, I think, or certainly not in the way we used them. It was quite gratifying to get this kind of response at the end of the Sunday session. So what we're hoping we'll be able to pull something off with you as well. Let's see how it goes.
And as we get started, this tool that you're seeing at the moment is called Mentee Meter, as you can see from its label at the top right. And we thought it would be interesting to start off by doing a little poll with all of you to find out where we're starting at the beginning of this call. Now, I have to copy and paste a link into the chat, which if you're accessing Mentee Meter on this device, this link should take you directly. Oh, before I do that, I need to say out loud, we are recording this call. If you have any problem with that, please either leave the call or don't say anything. Or rename yourself to something mysterious. The intention will be to share the recording quite publicly. So in what you say, do be constrained by that. So Mentee Meter, you can access it using the details that Martin's put on the screen right now, mentee.com, and the code 357879. The best way of doing that is use it on your phone or another device. If you're using it on this device, you can use this direct link to go to the poll. So mentee.com and the code 357879.
And we can see that 3 of you already are loving it. You can press the little heart button if you like to show us that you're there. Oh yes, 9, 10, 17, 18.
Oh.
Are we ready for the first question? Or should we just share the love for a little bit longer?
Just share the love, yeah.
We're more than 50 in the room, aren't we?
Yeah, we're 53 in the room.
Yeah.
But yes, let's go with the questions.
All right. Here we go.
It.
I'm not
Fantastic.
getting a place to put something.
It's so cool.
Oh, we've got at least
that
2
is
Anns
so
and at least 2
cool.
Farahs. That's interesting, but not, oh, Catherine as well. Popular name.
I think I'm in the wrong Menta room.
357879.
5, 7, 8. I didn't put spaces.
You don't
Shouldn't
need
need
spaces.
spaces.
You don't have to.
No.
Huh. 3, 5.
I had to do it twice.
Ah, now enter a word. Yay.
Any last people still want to enter their name? Or shall we find out where we're all located? That could be interesting,
Prachi's
right?
just checking the code, but I think
It's
we're mostly in there. So it's mentee.com, and then the code 357879. Okay, shall we move forward?
Yes.
Sure.
Where are you?
Right now.
Hey Brian, I didn't realize you were on the call. Yes, Brian, it is free for a limited. You get a limited edition free, and then you pay for a more elaborate version.
Well, I thought we might see a few more trends emerging from this one, but not many actually. Ah, somebody's in their living room. That's nice to see.
So we've got Japan, Green Bay.
Ah, mine's not showing. Oh, there we are.
Mine said I already answered it, but I don't see it.
So Esther, the size of the words is generated by the number of people who use that word. So we can tell that there are several people in London and more than one person in Newcastle. Okay, we're up to 48, so we should probably move on.
All right, slightly more substantial question coming up. Oh no, there's still people sharing their location.
51.
Shall we move on?
This is an awesome tool.
I'm interested that Pune has got more than one person. So
I'm
Pune,
interested
India.
but not surprised. How experienced would you say you are in online facilitation? These are not exact categories. You can respond to this as you see fit.
But this is very whizzy when you see the thing going up and down in real time.
We're
fun.
certainly getting faster at responding anyway. That's interesting, isn't it?
Well, it's just a check dot.
This is a learning process. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Is that just about everybody?
Pretty much. That's 51 out of 53.
Quite a range of experience.
So
Well, thank you.
So now we know where we're starting. Let's move into the next chunk, which is going to be to take you into breakout groups. Martin, you're now the host because you're going to drive the breakouts in this bit. We're going to be doing a bit of brainstorming in small groups about what are the challenges in promoting inclusion in online facilitation that you've either experienced or that you anticipate. So examples might be that some people are more comfortable with technology than others, or that some people feel awkward about being seen on camera. those kind of things might be examples, and things about power differentials, language. All these things would be the kind of challenges that you might anticipate. We're going to be using a tool called Jamboard. Again, I'll share a link. Just bear with me a second. So here's the link I'm going to share in the chat. If you follow this link, it will take you to a tool called Google Jamboard. Few people have joined. Now, it may be that some people are not able to join Google Tools from wherever they are, in which case you'll need to get the people in your breakout room to help. But I'm sure they'll be able to, you'll be able to figure something out between you. So this is the Google Jamboard. Hopefully you can see my screen. And you'll see that on the left-hand side here is a toolbar, and the fourth thing down is a sticky note. And you can add a sticky note like that. And it sticks itself to the screen. And you can move them. They all start off in this same spot, and they stack themselves on top of each other. So as soon as you post something, do move it. And you can move and delete other people's. So just be careful that you don't.
Okay.
Mhm.
The tool is pretty intuitive and pretty good fun to use. So we're going to use one board between us. Actually, I'll just share once more to show you something else. If we run out of space, you see at the top of the tool, there's a little 1-2 adding extra frames. If we need more space, just flick to the next page. So in your groups, please add 1 sticky per challenge. Let's see how many we gather. You'll be in a group of about 4. We'll start off with groups of 4, and then you might find yourself with only 3, you might find yourself with 5 because of some of the technicalities, but I'm sure you can improvise. Do build on other people's ideas or duplicate stickies as you prefer, and we'll have about 10 minutes for this activity.
Can you show the link for the Jamboard again?
Yes, just a second. Leslie, don't worry. Martin's on the case. Everybody should find themselves allocated to a group in just a moment.
Are you ready to go into the groups?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. You should be receiving your invitation now. It'll be groups of 4 or 5 if everybody follows the link. Welcome back, those who are returning. You'll all be back in just a moment when the 60 seconds is up and people find themselves rudely ejected. The power of the facilitator in an online meeting is awesome, isn't it? The way you can just call people back into the plenary rooms, whether they're finished or not. Did you enjoy that? Give us a little wave if that was fun. I saw some of you having fun. At least it looked like you were having fun.
Oh, good.
Whirling your sticky dots on the Jamboard and all sorts. I think we're all back now. It looks like we have 56 in the room now. So welcome back. I hope that was fun. Hope it was interesting. Certainly you seem to generate a lot of ideas. Let me share my screen now. You'll have all seen this already as you were working on it, but it's just possible that you may not all have realized that working on the first frame. Some of you were working on the second frame, and some of you were working on the third frame, and some of you were getting very creative and even moving towards solutions on the fourth frame. And if you keep scrolling, there was even one on the 6th frame. Not only different languages, but different frames. Yeah. We'd like to take a few reflections now from you. I'm going to stop sharing at this point because you can look at the Jamboard yourself if you'd like to. At this point, I'm going to mention that this session was partly inspired also by the IAF Social Inclusion Facilitators, SIG, which is IAF is the Institute of, the International Association of Facilitators. and a SIG is a special interest group. And the special interest group of IAF is led by 7 facilitators, all based in Africa. And they mention on their page of the IAF website that they're particularly interested in fostering social inclusion through facilitation. They don't mention online, but facilitation in general. And they mention, for example, disability, LGBTQI communities, youth, and so forth as different communities or groups of people who may be excluded. So we're going to follow their lead and invite a few of you to speak, but we're going to start by asking, is there anybody here from Africa or with African heritage? We would love to hear from you first. So if there's anybody who'd like to share a reflection, anything you learned from that exercise, especially if you have African heritage, please raise your hand. I'm not sure, Judy, have you mentioned yet how to raise your hand in this Zoom meeting?
I haven't.
So if you go to the participants list, hover your cursor over the bottom of the screen, find where it says Manage Participants, and you should see a participants list show up, perhaps on the right of your screen. And at the bottom of that, you see a number of emoticons. You can click yes, no, go slower, go faster. If you click on more, you may also see, I hope you'll see a hand raise button. So if you'd like to share an insight from that exercise, please raise your hand. So if there's nobody with African heritage who would like to do that, anyone with a disability?
May I say, Martin, that actually we all have African heritage.
You're quite right, Paolo. You're quite right.
Great insight.
And we all have a variety of abilities as well. I know that. If you consider yourself as having a disability, you're welcome to raise your hand. Or if you consider yourself being of LGBTQI community, as I do myself, you're welcome to raise your hand. Anne, yes, please go ahead. Oh, you're muted. But it looks like you don't want to speak. Is that right, Anne? Okay. In that case, is there anybody under 30? Let's go for youth. Alison in Bristol, yes, please.
I'm under 30, and I thought that there was a really wide range of kind of post-it notes that were appearing in all sorts of different ways, things that I hadn't considered, but things that then prompted me to consider. Yeah.
Thank you. Any example?
Particularly when it came to kind of technology, access to technology, and how there is, for example, with Zoom, there's one interface that requires all sorts of different people to use it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Fantastic. I was going to ask next for anybody who's not based in Europe or North America, and I see,
Okay.
you know, are you based in Asia?
Yes, I'm from Japan.
Welcome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And what's your reflection?
And I thought I'm not very experienced with online facilitating, so the all ideas were very surprising and very, I don't know, interesting to me.
Thank
That's
you.
all. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else who's not a native English speaker?
I'm not a native English speaker.
Go ahead, Anna.
So yeah, I think inclusion is very important, and I hope Zoom will manage to cope with this high demand, because I think yesterday the Zoom CEO published that, you know, we're really trying our best to cope with it.
Yeah.
And yes, I feel like personally I prefer to have face-to-face, just because of my energy, and I feel like I can establish the rapport with people, having the language barrier better if I'm in the same space. So I really try to push my colleagues and my teams to the virtual space at the moment. Which is quite interesting because I think charities and public sector in the UK, they really have their challenges.
Thank you. Let's take 3 or 4 more comments from anybody now who would like to raise your hand, and I'll take them in order. I see Celeste was first, so please go ahead. Celeste in Portugal.
Yes, I was just raising my hand to the question of native speaker or non-native speaker, and just adding on that, I'm a non-native speaker, and that's something that sometimes it's challenging when we do international calls or international facilitation sessions to leverage the level of language so that everyone can understand. Yeah.
Thank you. Absolutely. Joanne in Coventry, please go ahead.
Oh, hi. So I just wanted to share something with you that occurred to me. So we actually used Zoom the other day for my son. My son is 14 and he has Down syndrome, and they've just shut all the schools. And he has a weekly, he has like a weekly drama and sports group with all his friends. So we did it all through Zoom. We put them all on Zoom, and there was 8 of them. And in fact, they loved it because they took turns, they could see each other, they were interacting really well. And actually it's opened our eyes to a whole new kind of space for them to work together. So I think I think it's interesting that these kind of moments in crisis throw us into using things that we wouldn't normally think about, and then open up whole new worlds for groups of people who operate more visually, because children with Down syndrome operate much more visually and like to see people in front of them. So yeah, I just wanted to share that as a positive as well. My own challenge is reading the energy when it's on the screen in large.
Thank you. Bhavana, please go ahead, and thank you from me also for raising the topic for this webinar.
Yes, I liked in our breakout room, Mike had raised a very good point, and that was, how is the virtual space uniquely different from the real room? Because several of the power differentials and divides exist in the real room too. So what is exactly different? And can we just consider those blind spots that we naturally also do in real room as just like a larger blind spot in the online space? And so how do we navigate? And I really like that thought to help me think in a very different way.
Thank you. There are 4 more hands raised, so let's see if we can take all of them very quickly, shall we, Judy? Lysandra, please go ahead. Winnipeg.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the fact that language, yes, could be a barrier for this online webinars or meetings, but at the same time, I consider that this tool is very useful, is very interesting, is new to me. But I'm really looking forward to learn how to facilitate online, because like right now in this time of crisis, the company that I work for, we have to work from home, and so I have to facilitate all the workshops from, do it online from home. And even though it's very new and a little bit intimidating sometimes, and English is not my first language either, and I'm going to be working with a group of newcomers to Canada whose first language is not English. So I know that there might be some challenges right there, but I do value the tool, and I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to learn how to facilitate online.
Thank you. Thank you. Leslie Martin in Edinburgh.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I've been using Zoom for a couple of years through the RSA Fellowship, but never as a facilitator, just participating in others. So I think there are ways that this kind of technology is more inclusive and ways that it can be less inclusive. It's just how it's used. And I think Bhavana's completely right. It's just a different way of navigating a system. Also really interested in what Joanne said about the young. You know, we know how quickly young people and children can master new technology. So there's actually a fantastic opportunity, especially with people being confined to home, where it's not just children learning their schoolwork, but actually teaching their parents and grandparents or whoever happens to be in the house how to use this technology, because they will adapt to it really quickly. And as Joanne says, they'll love it. They won't have any issue with it the same way. I mean, I'm with Anna here. You know, I prefer face-to-face, and I'm missing going out and meeting people. But I do this quite a lot too. So, and I've got used to it, I have to tell you, just if anyone's unsure. At the beginning, I did not like Zoom at all. I hated it, actually. And I didn't like webinars either. So I have adapted to them, and I just realized it's just another way of communicating. So. Yeah. So thanks for doing this today. It was really, really good, and I hope there'll be more as well.
Thank you. On the question of age, I was amused to discover, talking to my mum on Mother's Day, as we just finished our 3 days of online facilitation this weekend, telling her all about our experience, to discover that she knew exactly what I was talking about, because she had just attended her first Zoom meeting in Quaker Meeting for Worship that morning at the age of 86. Yoichi, please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to point out that having to speak in a second language is an obvious significant barrier or handicap. But even in the same language environment, some people are more vocal, more articulate, they have their opinions, they're assertive, while the rest of us are more reserved and, you know, quieter and introvert. So in the in-room environment of facilitation, you can tell by watching them. But in the Zoom environment or virtual environment, you need, number one, to pay extra attention to what's going on. And number two, you could probably do a little design work before people get together online.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, good advice. We've got 2 more, but it is almost time to move on. Let's take Esther, who had her hand raised for some time, and apologies to Thomas. We'll come back to, we'll give you priority later if we may. Esther, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just two comments, 2 thoughts. One is I actually choose the gallery view so that I see all of your faces. Yes, it makes it tiny, but it gives me at least a little bit of an idea what the reaction of the audience or the others are. I don't know if this is a tip or if this is to be avoided, especially when you are facilitating as a participant. It's very joyful and it's very interesting. And the challenge that I'm facing, having used Zoom predominantly as a phone medium and small group meeting tool, is now what to do when you are co-facilitating with someone else who's not in the room with you. And then I noted, I observed sometimes when it didn't work so well and people were constantly interrupting each other, which was awful. And yet I guess it's hard to avoid. And so this would be another point of curiosity for me to learn. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, some of you have already started alluding to possible ways to address some of these challenges in your verbal comments and even on the Jamboard. Shall we move to that, Judy?
Yeah, but let's first do something which is really essential in these online meetings, which is to take a quick break. Just to stand up, move about, and have a stretch. It's all too easy to get hooked up, hunched over the machine, and oh, that's better, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And just notice we can do all sorts of energizers over Zoom. We're not restricted to just hunching over and staring at the screen for hours on end.
Right.
I saw on the BBC News the other day, people are having raves online these days, dance parties.
How fun.
Yeah.
And all the children are watching. Orchestra,
even orchestra, yes.
And the children are doing their fitness classes online as well. Of course, some of them are just watching a YouTube and doing it at home, which is the same as watching the telly, but others are actually doing it on Zoom together. And there's so much interesting stuff happening in this time of crisis, creativity bursting out everywhere. Now, Susan said in the chat to me, what about all the advantages of working this way? And I think that's important to think about in the backs of our minds. but we haven't got time to do everything on this call. So where we're going next is to think about how might we address these challenges in our own practice. What are some of the ways that we can address these challenges? Whatever we can do to work well in this online environment. Pause for a moment and think about that for yourself. What ideas do you have? How might we address all the challenges that we put on that Jamboard? In a moment, you're going to be put into pairs to talk to someone else about your ideas. After a couple of minutes, the pairs will be combined into fours to continue the conversation. How might we address the challenges? Then again, after a few minutes, the fours will be combined into about eights. And in your eights, please make some notes. How might we address these challenges? So in an 8, some of you are going to be practicing your online facilitation skills. We need to get some notes, and you can use whatever tools you would like to make those notes, but you're going to come back and each group's going to have a minute to share what they've got. You could use tools like this sophisticated piece of equipment.
Or one of these.
Or any online tool that takes your fancy. But take some notes, and one of you is going to share with the main group. So it's this, some of you know this activity as 1, 2, 4 all. In this instance, we're going to be 1, 2, 4, 8 all. If you're in a 2 and there's nobody appears within 30 seconds, just wait, because then you'll soon be combined with another group and you'll be in a 3. If, on the other hand, you are in, you wait for 2 minutes, 3 minutes and still nobody appears, then do come back into the room and we'll figure out what's gone wrong. And if for any reason you're in a group and you think, oh no, this is my ex-partner, we really can't have this conversation, then come back into the room and we'll reallocate you.
Wonderful.
Are we ready for groups?
Yes.
We'll all be in pairs apart from 1, 3, because I don't want to leave anybody on their own. So don't be alarmed if you find yourself in a trio. You should have your invitations now. Hi, Tony. Welcome back.
Hi, that was fun.
Was it?
Yeah. It was quite bizarre being moved from room to room.
It was bizarre for me as well, the sense of power I had over all of you.
Wow.
So is that everybody back in the room?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Just about.
Everybody okay with being physically moved from room to room?
Yes. It was fun.
It was fun moving you, Sonny.
It's a little
I need to learn the technique, though.
Yeah, it was a little disconcerting because we didn't know whether to finish our sentence or not. It was like, oh, should I finish?
Martin, if we could have people look at Sonny Walker's background, there's been a bit of a buzz about the virtual choice that you can make.
Well, and when it's large, it looks really goofy because putting the picture over a background, you get funny little things on the sides in the outline. But if you go to the video,
I just spotlighted you, Sonny. You've been.
I know you did.
Sonny, I'm going to have to be honest and say we don't have time to play with virtual backgrounds.
We talked about that as a humorous exercise.
Yeah, and it's brilliant fun. It takes ages, though, when everybody tries them. So I'm going to be honest. We're going to squeeze the time and ruthlessly go back to our plan, if that's okay. because we want to make sure we get the learnings from this activity from this activity on the content that we've been covering.
Well, and your cartoon is brilliant.
So what did you discover? Let's hear something from each group. Now, I don't know who is in which group, so which group is willing to share their thing first? Noel, go ahead.
Yeah, so not sure if you can read it or not. I definitely can't read it back to front, but we had a bunch of ideas. So using the chat system, so using the chat window for non-native English speakers, having the question written down is probably quite useful so they can take their time to digest it. The prompts before a meeting. So Judy, you're very good at sending out clear instructions in the invitation emails of downloading the tool, making sure you're in the right environment, that you join 15 minutes early, all that kind of stuff. Familiarization of the tools. So you and Martin have been doing a great job of building up our knowledge of how to use the different elements of Zoom and other tools as we've been going through, rather than hitting us with a load of it at the beginning. Specific instructions, so being very clear on what the invitation is for any of the particular activities, and even in the breakout rooms, if certain people are dominating or taking more time, just being very clear about what it is that you're after. Proxy for identity ties in with what Sunny was just saying about the background. We had a guy with a massive life-size Lego head that he sometimes uses to hide his face. Breakout rooms with a time limit is particularly useful, so people again are clear on the boundaries of how long they can talk for or not. And finally, an agreement on a visual indicator. So if you want to know if the energy is being lifted or if people understand, you can agree up front or ask the group to come up with some kind of visual indicator. So rather than just being lots of little faces, if you suddenly see everyone waving a hand or something, then it means something.
Right. Excellent list. Thank you very much. Which group is next to go?
Judy, I can go.
Okay,
but
Sandra, go.
You said Brian go?
I'm going to say Brian go.
Okay. If I could share, I could show you my mind map.
Please go ahead and share.
I'll do that very quickly. Someone uses an Adobe poll in the room, ask questions like, how long have you been working in the digital realm? Engage people right away. Identify those who have had difficulty in the past with technology. Setting the values. What agreements shall we make? About how the group shall operate, stay patient, show respect, do the front end work first, design and prep the meeting, do a trial run with other colleagues, a tech session, use a Zoom background. Someone suggested that the Zoom background be all the same background, so we all feel like we're in the same room. I thought that was interesting.
Interesting idea.
Yeah.
Use a clean page on a Jamboard. Team agreements about how we'll behave in the meeting, have hand signals, agree on no side chat, verbal warm-ups, have a tech buddy that you can connect with if you have difficulty. So that's me, and I've made some notes of what the folks before us shared, which was terrific. Thank you, and I will turn it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, let me.
Please stop sharing, Brian. Who was next?
I'm trying, yes, trying.
Who was next to go?
I can't make it big. Oh, damn. Sorry, Judy and everyone for wasting time here.
Don't worry, I can fix it.
All right, that's terrible. Judy, can you take control?
Yeah. Who's going next? Off you go. Carolina.
I was asking Brian, because if you have it as a file, you can just drag the file into the Zoom chat and we will all have the file.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, please do
okay,
that as
I'll
well.
do that. Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So Paolo is starting to share.
I am sharing, but with Carolina.
Yeah, I will be helping.
Okay, go ahead.
So it was great to have this 2, 4, 8 all. And yes, of course, we all realize that it requires a lot of thorough and planning, maybe to send people a kind of poll before. And sorry, I cannot, am I having this in the way? Yeah. And to prepare the structure of the event so that as in a real meeting, you have the tools ready. You can decide maybe to have a shared document with Zoom where people can write their or like Jamboard now. Take over now. We share this construction, co-creation with all the others.
Okay, and there are questions about the jam. This is everything on the board number 6 on the Jamboard. So if it's not clear on the screen, you can go directly to Jamboard and make it bigger. So we also been discussing like what Paolo said, like the preparation before. And Judy sent the email for this Zoom, and it was like extremely helpful, just for me not being very tech oriented. So, but also starting with kind of warm-ups to get people feel accustomed with new technology, but also to say something private about themselves. But we should also think about preparing people before, maybe in short session learning how to use Zoom, how to use Mural, how to use Jamboard, just to let them like slowly go into the cold water. But we also said that probably we shouldn't expect too much from ourselves, because online facilitation is different from offline, and we also have to learn. So we will be making mistakes. So just be patient, and maybe others from our group could help with other ideas that we had.
I can add unless someone else comes in. One other thing is you have to build redundancy in the team, at least 2 facilitators. If something goes wrong, to make sure that someone else can take over, also because it's not at all as easy. It takes a lot of energy, and it's nice to have to be at least in a couple. Others?
We had for reading the room that you can do polling in the Zoom. So you can have a couple of polls prepared up front to be able to ask the questions, what's your energy level, how are you feeling, or what any special needs you might have. So if you have those polls prepared before, you can just like run them during the meeting to check, to try to read the room at least a little bit.
Fantastic, thank you. And somebody was saying, just as I dropped off the call, it's a good idea to have somebody else on the call who can look after the call if you drop off, isn't it? I don't know whether you saw me go, but I've just been thrown out and back in again.
This idea was co-facilitate. Please co-facilitate together online. So it will be immensely helpful. So just
right. Thank you. So which other groups are still to go? Paolo, please stop sharing. And Susan, you were going to go next? You're muted, Susan. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, I believe I can, that Carolina might have actually been in our group eventually after the 10, but I don't recall. Sorry. But we used a Word document, which is what I generally use as if it's a flip chart. So I use a Word document as a flip chart when I'm doing online facilitation. And we started out with frame at the very beginning of the session, a story about how it works, frame that we're doing in a positive way and not dwelling on what challenges we might have. Liked the 2-4-8, meaning that each individual person has to speak, because when there's only 2 people. And I want to add on to that is that one of the problems that there are people who don't speak up because there are so many other people in the room. But if you start with 2, they have to talk, and that kind of primes the pump for later on when they're talking. I personally think it's really important to make sure that everybody in the room is cognizant of the people who are phoning in, because not everybody has the video technology. And so regularly acknowledge the people who are in the room to the people who are on the phone, so that they know who's around the table and who's speaking. And then at the same time, making sure that the people who are in the room remain cognizant of the people who are calling in, because it's very easy for them to talk over the people who are calling in. And for that matter, when somebody who calls in says something and you as the facilitator can see everybody is nodding, say that, you know, remember, oh, Anna, you don't know, you can't see everybody here, but they're all nodding about what you just said. So it brings them into the room a little bit more.
Yeah.
Be more disciplined in having a clear agenda and sticking to it. Maybe have the agenda in your chat so that people can keep on referencing it.
Good idea. And may I interrupt you?
Sure.
To say that you're absolutely right. We should have been sharing the agenda. What an excellent idea, because that would have let you all know just how tight the timings are on this
Sure.
plan. So if I may interrupt, I'm sorry for doing so, but
absolutely,
we're going to have to call it a day there. Unless, is there one other group that needs to share one single thing that hasn't been mentioned so far?
I could probably share one thing.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we were talking about psychological safety, and if I could quickly share a screen, if the other one's stop. So the share. Okay, so hopefully you can see that I've got 1, 2, and 3 psychological safety, and it's like there's a person who's slightly got a darker shading on, and we were saying that if it's a one-to-one in the breakout rooms, we said there was a high level of psychological safety, but it wasn't always particularly productive because that other person may not know all that much. And then in scenario 3, where you've got like the whole plenary, maybe it's a little bit difficult, you don't feel it's quite as safe. And so what we're talking about was maybe there's a sweet spot in scenario 2 where it's a smallish breakout room, but there are enough people who are there that you feel you can talk. And I think a really good point that came out was that if people in that breakout room have something in common and you know that they are experts, and then you can talk to them as peers, you feel very confident with them. And that actually really helps psychological safety quite apart from the number of people. So I hadn't realized that before as like a really good thing. So I thought that was a good tip.
Magic. Thank you very much, Richard. And with that, I think we need to start to move towards the close of the... Martin.
Thank you, Judy.
Nice.
And now I'm sharing my screen again with another Mentee Meter, a final Mentee. 3 questions this time. You'll notice it's a different code. So please go to mentee.com on your smartphone or your tablet, or even another window of your laptop or desktop. Mentee.com, enter 67780. And please share any one insight from this session that you could take away and apply.
So obviously it's not as quick as just clicking a checkbox in Mentee Meter, but it's going to be really, really informative to everybody.
Yeah, it will require you to think a little bit, but now's the time for that. And now I expect they'll start coming thick and fast. Be mindful, prepared, clear, advanced preparation beforehand. Jamboard. Zoom background choices, yes. Why, they are coming thick and fast now.
Yeah.
"27 have responded. Are there more to come? Co-facilitate, use greater discipline in planning. Great demo of the hand up function.
My personal screen did not update, even when I hit refresh.
Do you mean in Mentee.com?
Yes.
Did you enter the new code?
Yes.
Ah. And you hit refresh?
I did.
Same.
Have you tried switching it off and switching it on again?
Maybe only host can see the results, because I also see.
I'll just use yours.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you seeing
it just goes.
Are you seeing me share the screen? You see the results there?
I'm fine seeing yours, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as the last people add their details to the Mentee Meter, can I suggest that if you want to stay in touch with anybody else who is on this call, please put some kind of contact details in the chat. That might be your Twitter handle, your LinkedIn, or your email address if that's your preferred contact mechanism. And then anyone who would like to can share the chat at the end.
Can save the chat.
Yeah, save the chat, I should say.
Yeah, you can
yes.
save the chat for yourself. I think let's go on to the final two questions, shall we?
Yeah.
It's great to see that there are so many insights from this session that you'll take away and apply. We will share all of the outputs of this session with you afterwards, so you'll have a copy of this. Let me ask you now, if I may, please rate this session. How was it? Did you enjoy it? Did you learn a lot? And are you going to do all those things you just said you could take away and apply? Whoa! Result. But we're not there yet. This is fun, isn't it? Look at that. We'll give you just another minute or two. We've got 18 responses so far. Please shout if you're struggling to work out how to respond to this. Well, this is pretty encouraging, Judy, wouldn't you say?
I would say we've done a reasonable job considering everything.
My Mentee Meter's crashed, but I thought it was a great session, but I can't get on to the next question.
Oh dear.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Were you on the? You were on the last one, were you?
Yeah, it just seems to have stalled. Might be my phone connection.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Try on your laptop, whatever device you're using. Just open another window. We've got one more question to go. I'm going to give you all another minute or so to respond to this one. We shan't wait for all 50-something to respond. But anyway, I'm glad that 4.2 out of 5 of you have enjoyed the session a lot, and 3.9 out of 5 of you have learned a lot about facilitation online. That's great. Shall we move on?
I think it's
Finally,
time.
How are you feeling right now? Let's see how this compares with the results we had on Sunday after our 2 to 2.5 hour sessions over a 3-day period. Hopefully there won't be as much tiredness as there was that time. But we don't know what you were all doing before you joined us today. You may have to refresh your Mentee screen. Oh, there we go. Connected, intrigued, happy.
There we go.
Fantastic. Any more for any more? You can have up to 3 feelings on this question. Whoa! Maybe my screen is taking a while to refresh.
Yeah,
now they're coming in.
Lots of views.
Yeah.
And excited, happy, energized, hopeful, curious. We've got energized in both American and British English, and I think if they were combined, they would probably be bigger than happy, which is exciting.
And with that, I think it's probably time to move to close, Judy.
I believe it is, and you and I, Martin, we can share our details with people in the follow-up email. If people want to find out more about what I do, I'm sharing a link to a booklet that I've created about creating, connecting online events. Martin is martingilbraith.com. We'll send out all the outputs from this in an email after the session. We'll also share a link to the video. It's been really exciting connecting with you all. Do save the chat. If you've got details in there that you want to harvest, there is alongside where the name where it says everyone in blue, there are 3 dots. Click that, and save chat is one of the options. Make sure you save the chat for any details you need, because saving chat can be a bit hit and miss, because private messages end up in there.
Before you share the chat that you've saved with anybody else, be aware that any private messages you've shared with one individual will also be in that saved chat. So you might want to delete those before you forward. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been fantastic. And thank you, Judy, for the invitation to do this together. And Bhavan, is it, whose idea it was? It's been fantastic. We look forward to seeing you all online one way or another, or perhaps a future free facilitation webinar.
Let's do more of it.
Let's do more. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to see you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.